Hey guys, so I've got this 1989 Chevy pickup truck and it's awesome. But is it perfect? No, at least not yet. Because I've discovered something else on my truck that needs to be done, and that probably contributed to my perception of what this rough idle is. And there is sometimes, like, you could feel it, but it's more of a vibration, you know. And you know what that could mean? Engine mounts. Replacing the engine mounts on the GMT 400 pickup truck is difficult. Let me explain what the problem is. See how the mounts are placed on the cross member of the frame? There are 3 bolts on each side attaching them. Unfortunately, the nuts they are screwed into are not welded to the frame. They're lock nuts with an extra wide flange, and they're inside this very thick and completely closed crossmember. The only way to get at them is through any of the openings at the bottom, the biggest ones of which are where the lower control arms are attached. From that hole to the upper nut, it's probably about 16 inches. You cannot see those nuts at all unless you find a way to install a light right in there. With most tools, those nuts are impossible to reach. This video is about my trials and errors removing and replacing those nuts and bolts, and what eventually worked. As you can see, the new engine mounts are in place, but let's go back a few days.
Temu to the rescue.
Long handle, chrome vanadium steel. It looks like it's a decent quality wrench. See, I was offered the same kind that was only about this long, up to there. Locally here in Edmonton would have cost me $60. This, $25. Can't argue with that. And for those of you in the United States, I'm talking Canadian dollars. Is it any good? So guys, it's a little bit like a curse. Just as I decide that maybe I should try and see if I can reach all these bolts and get them off and start replacing the engine mounts. Well, the wind's already picked up hours ago, but now we're expecting light rain. Maybe I'll just see if this is any improvement over what I had before, and then I'll do this probably on Sunday. Well, let's see. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, you know, the weather. You're not gonna freeze to death or anything, but oh man, I would just not like to roll around in the mud when I do this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The bolts that I am trying to get at, they're right there. I got the light shining on them there. After getting a little bit frustrated, I tried this swivel ratchet along with a flexible extension that I showed you in my last video. And yeah, unfortunately that didn't work neither. So guys, I have learned a lesson here. And what it says is that the flex extension isn't suitable for anything that is really tight. And the thing is, the nut isn't really tight anymore because it's already moved. But what it is, it's a lock nut. And that's the problem. See, it's so tight that the flex extension just got twisted like a pretzel. But, you know, I got enough swivel stuff. So I got the first bolt out. And I'm going to use the same method with the swivel ratchet on the bottom and the regular ratchet on the top with this deep socket on the bottom. It should be okay. I should be able to reach that. And if worse comes to worse, I still have that ratcheting wrench. But the problem is that it's kind of really hard to get on there. And because it's going to be almost on a 90-degree angle down there, there's not much holding it. So the ratchet, if the socket is on that nut, it gives me a lot more leverage. Well, it didn't really work out that way. I found a better way. I had to put my Temu wrench through that big hole right there in order to get that bolt up there. It turned out to be the only way. So guys, it's actually hours later. It's hours later, and I got two of the bolts out that attach the passenger side engine mount to the cross member. But the third one, it's like way far in there. And what I did now is got my special wrench here, and I tied it to a big ass screwdriver. Well, I hope this is going to work. But to be honest with you, I'm not that optimistic at this point, because I've been struggling for quite some time now, and I can't get a grip on this one bolt, and it's really hard to get at, and I'm a little bit at the end of my wits here. So I don't know what it's going to take, but this is new. This is my first attempt with this setup, and it gives me more control, more leverage. So I'll let you know how it goes. 3 hours later. No, my trick didn't work. I'm still stuck on the same bolt, and I know it's going to be quite an ordeal to get that out. I might have to end up cutting it out, because I can't see any good way of getting my wrench on there from the bottom, and even if I do, then I still need quite some torque at the top to get this off, because these are lock nuts, and even when you get them going, you know, it's an eighth of a turn at a time if you're lucky. That's how it is. Now I got this big bolt out right there where you see that void. That's where the big bolt was. That came out surprisingly easy, but you know, it's still a struggle to get off the lock nut. But tomorrow. Princess Auto promise. We stand behind this product. At Princess Auto, your satisfaction is guaranteed. Made in China. Okay, this is what happened yesterday, I guess. Yeah, I showed you in the heat of the moment, but I'll show you again. So this was a set of 3. What do you think? Will they honor the warranty, or is there one? I still have the receipt. Yeah, and this is what I got this morning at Home Depot. It's a 3/8 breaker bar, and it's 18 inches long. That's actually pretty rare to find this. So maybe this will help me finally get a socket on that stupid nut that is like way inside the cross member. But I'm not going to hold my breath. I have to actually work for this. I have to go under the truck again and try really hard. So this extension bar, it did not work. It's because there isn't enough room for that with the socket on. One way it could work is if I was to bend it. I don't know if I want to do that with a brand new extension, but I found a way to get this actually onto the nut, but it falls right off because it's too loose on there. So I put some electric tape on there that creates a little bit of a friction so that it will not come right off. Now I'm going to go down there and try that. Attempt number 17. So I actually believe that I made a little bit of progress here. I got wood chims in there, wedged, and the wrench is in there and goes way up there. Now it's time to try and jack up the engine a little bit. Doesn't need to come very much, just enough to kind of get better access to that bolt up on top and eventually slide out the mount. I actually made a little bit of progress. Let me show you. See, I lifted up the engine just enough to get better access to that bolt head down there, and I actually managed to loosen it. I jacked this under the oil pan with the block of wood. I don't know if that's actually to be recommended like that, but I didn't see any other way. Let me show you what I did at the bottom. The wrench is in there and it is wedged into position so that hopefully when it tries to move, it'll just go against the wood and it won't fall out. That's the problem. It always tries to fall out. Now, if I actually get this off, I have no illusions here. That's going to be a hell of a job to get another bolt in there. But I'm going to fiddle the bolt in from the bottom by pulling it through on something and then putting the nut from the top. And then it's just a matter of holding it. But there are lock washers available. There's stuff that can help, and I can have a nut that perhaps isn't a lock nut that I can turn easier, finger tight until it grabs, and then should be in business. So this method actually worked. I got this bolt out. It wasn't as hard as I was afraid that it was going to be. I mean, once it started turning, it's like the nut down there wasn't as tight as the other ones were. What I was using at the top was just an ordinary 15 mil, and at the end I was actually able to get it out by hand. Now I gotta see if I can move this engine mount out of the way and then slide in a new one. So see, the engine mount is already coming out. That is awesome. Hopefully I can get it out all the way. I think so. I think I got it out here. There, guys. Engine in the truck. 36-year-old engine mount. Doesn't really look that bad. The new engine mount is in the right spot, but as you can see, the bolt is sticking out. Now I have to try and put that ratchet back in the exact same place that I had it before, except in the opposite direction. I think I'm going to try to put one of them lower bolts in place, not tightening it down or nothing, but just to get it so it doesn't shift. And then I'll try to put the ratchet on the nut, which, by the way, I managed to turn it inside there without having to take it out even. It caught right away, so that's a really good sign. But the question is, am I going to be able to put that ratchet back in its place the same way that I had it, enough to tighten that bolt all the way? Like, it's got to be tight. So guys, now I'm starting to get kind of excited. Yeah, I got this bolt tightened down completely. That was the one I was most worried about. So that is pretty tight in there, and I show you, I did it again, once again, the same way with wooden wedges and the ratchet swivel head wrench in place. See, I just lock it in place with all of these wooden wedges. Guys, this is a way that works, and I tried many different ways here. See, now I should be able to lower this in place, and it should sit in there just the way it's supposed to. I think what's been going on with the old one is just because the rubber was a little bit worn out, it kind of collapsed, and it didn't really actually look totally finished, but it definitely wasn't like this one. I put a bolt head in place already there so that wouldn't shift, and then I'll actually try to get those nuts on from the bottom just the way they were originally. If that works, then this engine mount will be done, and it's a lot better than it was yesterday, I tell you. Yesterday I was getting desperate. I need both hands to lower this. It's definitely sitting the way it is supposed to be. See if that bolt goes in, or if I have to wiggle this back up a little bit. Seems to go okay. So guys, I'm happy to tell you that my engine mount, at least the first one that is on the passenger side, is completely installed. It was quite the ordeal, but part of that is because, you know, you don't know what to expect, and you have to kind of experiment a little bit to get the feel for which is the best way to grab the nut that you gotta undo at the bottom inside the cross member. It's very hard to see it even with the light. And what helped me a great deal, I got these lights at the dollar store. See, you just turn it, light comes on, and it's got a little magnet in the back. So I put those right inside the cross member, and I could tilt it so that it gives me the best light. So that was number one. Yeah, it's LED. It seems like those batteries last forever. The number two, most important thing, and you know, this is really quite something, because I ordered this on Temu, which doesn't have the best reputation for stuff, for the quality, but for what I do, for what I need it for, this wrench appears to be still, even now, excellent quality, and it made it possible to reach those nuts in the end. Mind you, yesterday I struggled with it all night long, and I couldn't get it on there right, and I don't know why that was, because probably I was trying too hard for too long. So and I probably misjudged the angle that it has to be at. So then the third thing that really helped me were these wooden wedges, because once this is in place, unless you have something to hold it there, it'll just fall down again as soon as it moves, even if you got it on there real good. And you don't have any way of holding it with one hand while you're unscrewing the bolt on top. That's just impossible. You can't reach around that far. And plus, on the passenger side, I had to jack up the engine just to get to that bolt, because I could barely see it. I could barely see the head of it. And I was actually really relieved when that started turning and this wrench stayed in place the whole way. It even stayed in place after I had the bolt completely out. So the nut was already there in the right position, which, I don't know, it's almost like a stroke of luck. But I put it right back on there, I mean the bolt, and it caught the nut. And you know how the ratchet, it needs a certain resistance before it turns freely. Well, that was enough to catch the threads. And then all I needed to do is take out the wrench, position it the other way around, and then put my wedges back in there and stuff, and I could tighten the bolt from the top. Yeah, and I used the swivel ratchet to tighten it good, so I know that it's not in there loose or anything like that. And because those nuts and the bolts also, they have a fairly large flange, once they hit the metal from the inside, then they catch pretty good, you know, they don't turn so easily. And in order to make this even better, I think one possibility, if you have the nuts out, would be to actually take a chisel or center punch and knurl them a little bit, so that once they catch the metal, then you don't really need the wrench anymore. You know, you just tighten it and it'll bite into the metal and do by itself. So I'll end this video here, but not before I show you my brand new engine mount. The other side, I don't know, I'm gonna do it either tomorrow or during the week, but you've seen what it's like, and I believe that the passenger side on this truck is the harder one because there's less room. I already tried the driver's side. I can get it with my wrench. Now you can see a beautiful brand new engine mount that took me like the better part of 2 afternoons to put in there. I don't know if I can show you the bolts. So I'm sure you all have the same kind of truck, and that's why you came across my video in the first place. So if you need to change your engine mounts with the engine installed, It is totally possible to do that. You just need a lot of patience. And I'd like you to give me a thumbs up for this, guys. And if you want to know more about this truck, there's a whole playlist for it. Just check it out right here. And then I'll see you in another video. Thank you.